All right, we have breaking news now. Let's get to it. It has to do with COVID-19. And the World Health Organization has just declared a global coronavirus. It is a pandemic at this point. It is a pandemic at this point. It is a pandemic at this point. It is a pandemic at this point.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to my first podcast on the myths, the mistakes, and the mechanics of happiness. I want to introduce to you a really interesting guy who I had the pleasure of speaking to fairly recently, called Chris Thrall. He has done some incredible things. He's 50 years old. I would call him almost superhuman.
The house won't paint itself. That means you got to start running. I decided 2 months ago I'd do a 100-mile run. Why not tag a 10-mile swim and a 450-mile bike ride to it and make it a quadruple Ironman, right? So I've had 2 months to train, and I'm not excessively fit, and I'm not superhuman. It's not because I'm a superman, but if you go on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Chris Thrall, I talk about the life rules that I've built up by, rather than avoiding and shunning adversity, I've embraced it over the years, and I've turned every negative into a positive. And as I always say, you get one life, and if you live it right, one is enough.
And you know that the emphasis of my channel is about health and how a lot of these things seem to connect together. I talk a lot about nutrition and how you have to be really conscious about what you're putting into your system, and how this is really important to maintain not only general health, but mental health as well. And what really intrigues me is there's one part of this whole puzzle that I haven't been able to find out a lot about, and I have looked around, but I just can't really get my head around making a concise opinion of this. And interestingly enough, Chris is somebody who follows something called the alkaline diet. And when I was chatting to him last, he's been doing this for about 70 years. He's done some amazing things, and I want him to tell me and to tell you guys about this as well. So welcome to my channel, Chris, and I'm really looking forward to this chat.
Oh, Dennis, thank you, and thank you for your your kind introduction. So yeah, as you said, I'm Chris Thrall, 50 years old. Thank you very much. Telling the world my biggest secret. No, I'm actually the opposite, Dennis. I like getting old because if you keep your body in order and your mind in order, I don't think it really, I don't think age in this day and age has to be what it was for our sort of parents' generation, and grandparents. But
can we first of all start with kind of, I guess, if you can just paint that picture of, where you've just had an incredible life. I'm really fascinated by the interviews I've seen you do and your story. So you just from kind of your earlier days through to, you had a few hiccups in the middle there, to the kind of person we see now who is just doing just amazing physical stuff. So how did that start for you? Where have you come from? Who are you?
All right. So in a nutshell, I had what we would call a challenging childhood. It was in the 70s, quite a rough time for a lot of people. I won't sort of harp on about that or go down that route, but as such, when I got to adulthood, I left the Royal Marines, that's the commandos here in Britain, to go and run a business in Hong Kong. And within 6 months, I was chronically addicted to crystal methamphetamine, and I was experiencing something called psychosis, which is it's an extreme form of mental illness. And again, in a nutshell, this was kind of my traumatic youth catching up with me, and my experimenting with drugs was trying to make sense of all of these sort of psychological issues that I'd been carrying all my life, albeit I didn't know it, but they kind of came to the forefront when I discovered this thing called drugs. I followed the sort of happiness that I thought drugs were giving me, and as we both know, that's the beginning of something called the addiction. Cut a long story short, I spent 2 years kind of wandering around in what I call the wilderness. I don't look at it as a negative thing, or as, you know, in society's terms, I hit rock bottom. That's what you'd say. People say, "Oh, you've turned your life around." I say, no, I just continued on my journey. I'm saying all this for a reason, Dennis. You know, it's just that it's just that being negative about any aspect of this beautiful thing called life, it doesn't serve any purpose. It's not going to help you, you know, with the possible exception of, I don't know, being negative about a poisonous snake that's about to bite you. That could help you, right? But as far as
I really like that expression, that like this idea of just this continuation of a journey, as opposed to the ups and downs or the goods and bads. It's such a, I know it sounds like a little bit philosophical, but I think it's a really healthy take in it.
Yeah. So in my life, there's no negatives. There's just experience. I try to be as philosophical as possible with the knowledge that we have as humans. We don't know the secret to the universe or the meaning of life yet. I'm happy with that. I don't, you know, that's not going to really kind of, you know, get me down. I just try to educate myself to the best I can with the knowledge that's out there. I think you become a bit savvy after a while as to what's kind of quirky and, you know, what's kind of faddish particularly when it comes to things like what you eat and the way you exercise and conduct your affairs and this sort of thing. I'm just gonna do something here, Dennis, because it relates to our discussion about coronavirus and what we can do to protect ourselves if we care. I say that for a reason, is a lot of people profess to not want to be ill, to want to have the good life, to live to a right. It's actually very few people will do something about that.
I think you're right.
But for those people watching that are possibly concerned and quite, you know, that's quite understandably so with this media kind of outrage and shock at the moment. Just going to do something here. These are called pH strips. What they do is they give you an indication of the alkalinity in your system. So as we know, all living organisms have a level of alkalinity. It can sway between acid and alkaline, so it can sway either way. But we have, as human beings throughout our lifetime, we have an average that will, maybe mean is the right word, that will average out to. And the way I describe it is, if we muck around with that alkalinity, which is affected by what we put into our body in our diets, it's going to have an effect on your health. In the same way as you can have a plant, you know, I don't know, a cactus, say. Sure, you could feed it Coca-Cola. It's not going to die immediately. You could feed it Coca-Cola the next week, you know, it's still going to be okay. The week after that, you could feed it Coca-Cola, and then it's going to you know, it's a plant. It's going to show signs of suffering. I think you know where I'm going with this. After a year, you haven't got any cactus anymore, because as much as you thought, well, it's Coca-Cola, it's fizzy and it's good. You know, I mean, Coca-Cola used to be sold as a health drink. We got to remember this. It wasn't really until the 70s. In the 70s, the adverts were still selling it on mainstream television as a health drink, despite it having, let's say, for arbitrarily 20 sugars in a glass, right?
Well, I think originally actually did have cocaine in it, didn't it?
Yes.
Like right at the start. So
now that's replaced by caffeine, I believe, although I'm sure someone's going to correct me. But anyway, my point is, only a fool would think you can feed your plants anything that you want and they're not going to suffer. And yet when it comes to the human body, we've all been doped by the various industries, from the medical industry through to the food industry, through to education, to believe it's absolutely fine to eat whatever we want, because cancer is a lottery that only happens, you know, terribly to certain people. And the same with heart disease, diabetes,
And I think just to make a point there, you know, some of the stuff sounds quite confronting, but when you say, you know, we've been duped by the schools, all you got to do is just think of any school and the meals they supply, and the meals they supply are horrendous. And the other thing that you know, again, some people might be a bit confronted. Oh, you can't think about cancer like that. 100 years ago, we never got cancer the way we're getting it now. So the stuff that you're saying, if you just listen to it with I think one nuance, your automatic view might be just to go, oh, come on. But the stuff you're saying is actually really on point. I think it's really important to make that clarification.
Yeah. So I'm just going to put this, call it a stick, in my mouth.
Yeah. So while Chris is doing that, we've got this, I guess, position in our bodies. It's called homeostasis. And what that does is it's always trying to find this balance. And when Chris was talking about it before, we've got a pH just means acid, or the opposite of acid, which is base. Okay. And you've got an absolute neutral point where it's neither acid nor base, which is 7.0 exactly. And then you got this range, which we're always in, which is slightly acidic. And the normal range that we have in the textbooks that you'll find out is 7.35 to 7.45. And when we're outside of those ranges, we're considered that we're either sick at one side of it or the other. So I'm fascinated to hear what Chris is going to tell us now. And a way to measure it is this litmus test. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So these are called pH strips. They measure exactly what you say, whether your system is acidic or alkaline, or where we want it to be, which is the natural balance in the middle. Now, obviously, this will vary. I always like to use the example of our evolution, because the way we live now in modern life is relatively short, right? We've lived this way in houses and domesticating animals. We're talking thousands of years, whereas the human being as a species have been around for, well, millions of years. I mean, our makeup has obviously been here since the dawn of time. But I guess what I'm trying to say is we spent much more time as hunter-gatherers foraging in the nature for food than we did living this modern lifestyle, where you could, for example, eat a steak every single night because, you know, you just go to the supermarket, right? And the way I try to explain it is, when we ate that natural diet, and we can talk more about what specifically hunter-gatherers would have eaten, your body has evolved at this pH level, okay? And it's, as you said, it's actually, I believe, 7.25 or it's just over 7. You may, or maybe you know better than me, but again, the point is, I've just tested myself with a strip. It's telling me that my saliva is 7 on the scale.
Got you. So I wonder if there's a difference between salivary pH, which there probably is in blood, because I'm more familiar with intensive care, so I'm talking about a blood pH. So I'm guessing there's a little bit of a
This test is supposed to be representative of what's going on in your system, right? So blood included. If you test your urine, which you can do with these strips, you'll get a slightly more acidic reading, or that's what I found. And the reason behind that is obviously part of the function of your internal organs is to get rid of this acid, okay?
Yeah.
To
And
keep
part of urea, it's a thing called uric acid, which accounts for the slightly high, which, you know, it is an acid. Yeah.
So yeah, I've got a reading there of 7. So I'm let's just call it neutral, right?
Yeah.
Now, what I've got here is my green drink, which I have religiously every morning. In fact, my partner, very kindly, she knows how important this is for my welfare, because for 17 years I've never been ill. That's no coughs, no colds, no flu, so long as I stick to this, you know, so long as I've kept my alkalinity roughly where it should be. As I say, you can go either way, because and I'll talk more about that, but I'm going to drink this as we speak, and I just want to show you the increase or the effect that it will have on my system. So yeah, feel free to keep talking, Dennis.
Sure. So a couple of things, and again, I kind of know the answer for already to this because of the chats we had before. But just to clarify, are you selling a product?
No.
Okay. So, and there's no brand name, or there's no vested interest, or there's no, you know, this is not basically a sales pitch.
It's really clever you thought to ask me that, but no, not at all. I have one bottom dollar, that is love. I love all people. I believe love is the only way. I've lived, worked, and traveled across 80 countries now. I've lived, worked, and traveled across all 7 continents. I'm a pilot, qualified pilot, skydiver. I'm a former, as I said, former Royal Marines Commando. I've run an ultra marathon every single day for 37 days, the length of the United Kingdom, carrying a 14-kilo backpack and sleeping by the side of the road for charity.
A former Royal Marines commando from Devon has tonight reached Land's End after running all the way from John O'Groats. Chris Thrall has run an ultra-marathon every day since the 1st of September and has made the 999-mile journey to raise money for a veterans charity. Spotlight's Andrea Ormsby saw him cross the finish line.
He's explored 80 countries on 7 continents, backpacked through North, South and Central America, caught piranhas in the Amazon, swum with bull sharks in Belize and holds a world record for firewalking. This is Chris Thrall's latest adventure.
Yeah, it's up there with the rest of them. I've been lucky over the years to, try my hand at a lot of different adventures. I've been scuba diving in the Antarctic, fly planes, jump out of them, and of course I joined the Marines when I was 18.
Chris has done 37 ultramarathons every day from John O'Groats to Land's End to raise money for a charity which is close to his heart.
Words fail. I mean, to do what he's done has been incredible, and the condition his body's in, because he's got wrecked knees, other problems that we all know about. And you just run out of words to describe how much you admire his effort, how much it means to so many people, because he's inspiring a lot of people who are in the same boat, PTSD.
Life for Chris became very hard after he left the Royal Marines.
I mean, I didn't know what depression was, and I found it really hard to interact with professionals because they didn't really understand the mindset of a serviceman.
He's done it. A warm welcome back and around £15,000 raised to help other veterans in need. Andrea Ormsby, BBC Spotlight, Land's End.
For my 50th birthday, I did 4 Ironmen in a row, with only 8 weeks training. So that was swimming 9 miles, cycling 450, and then immediately running. I say immediately, I had to drive to the race, which took me a day, but running 108 miles, that was non-stop. So running 30 hours non-stop, bar, grabbing some water and shoving a sandwich in my face. What am I saying? I've, as I said, been chronically addicted to crystal meth. I've been not just to the edge of the envelope with mental health, but I've been, to use the old-fashioned expression, completely mad. I've been over it without the help of any doctors or any self-help groups like your Narcotics Anonymous and the like. I rebuilt my life and my mindset in a much more productive way to be able to leave this destructive behavior behind me. As such, through this education, which incidentally included qualifying as a youth worker, a youth and community worker, that's what my degree is in, and studying social work at a master's degree level. On top of that, I've worked as a substance misuse specialist. I'm now a life coach and have a sort of class of 70 people. 83 people now that I interact with for life coaching. What I'm trying to say is I've been around a bit.
And to put framework on why we chatted, I'm aware of, from just looking at some of your stuff, the incredible stuff you've done, but it's that physical stuff that kind of blows me out the water. And you got only a couple of years of me, and one of the things you said to me was that you attribute this to staying alkaline. And so that's what I'm really fascinated about.
Yeah.
Is where are you coming from with that? How does that add up? Because and it's so confusing. There's carnivore diets, and there's friggin' vegan, and there's ketogenic, and I look into this a lot, and even then I've got to step back sometimes and just try to simplify things. And we both agree, I think, about the importance of kind of clean eating, which is organic food and avoiding pesticides and trying to get micronutrients into your diet. And I found it tough to get information on more about the alkaline diet and why it works. So I'm fascinated to see what you think, and I want to try and see if you can sum it up for me, I guess.
Sure. I'm going to keep this very simple, Dennis.
Yeah.
Because I know that you and I could talk for 4 or 5 hours on this easily, yes, and we wouldn't even cover much more than the bases.
Yeah.
Going back to the point I was making is I've seen a lot of the world, and I've boiled life down to one, other than the alkaline way of living, to one simple thing. It's love. I don't want anything from anyone. I just believe as a human species, love is the way. It breaks down all barriers. It gets you over your ego, which is the cause of so many problems in our lives. If you can separate the ego from the self, yes, you're automatically distancing yourself from so many things, anxiety disorders and depression and this, all the causes of this, right? So as far as do I want to make anything? No. Hopefully I'll make some money from my YouTube channel. And the reason I say that is I've got to pay the bills the same as everybody else. And that's the only reason. So no, I'm not trying to sell anyone. I am going to recommend this green powder. If I was on American TV, I think they cover the name up, but I don't care about that because I'm not. This is from Tesco. It's a British supermarket, as many people will know. Promise they're not going to pay me anything.
So what is that, Chris? It's green super blend powder. What's in it?
Right. This is called.
Roughly.
This is referred to in health circles as super greens. Okay. I'll read you the ingredients on the back. Don't quite need my glasses for this, I think. The perfect blend of wheatgrass, pea protein powder, barley grass, spinach, ginger, and spirulina. Now, don't focus on the idiosyncrasies here to our friends watching. It's not about that. Avoiding the coronavirus and any virus for that is not about getting up on the nitty gritty of your vitamin D or your niacin or injections of colloid silver or stuff. Don't do that, by the way, because that will probably kill you. But I've been hearing all this stuff on the internet, and people really miss the point, Dennis. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not God, I don't know anything, but I know what has worked for me for 17 years because I'm the only person I know that doesn't get sick. Everyone else I know gets sick 2-3 times a year. Blame it on everybody else. I caught this cough, cold from Dave in the office. They don't understand how the body works. So the thing to take away from this is it's green. Green is it's energy that's stored from the sun through photosynthesis, right? So it's the sun's energy that's stored in a plant, and it's a crucial component of human well-being. And what it does, it has an overwhelmingly alkaline effect on the body. Eating greens, eating vegetables full stop is an alkaline practice. And so, yeah, does that answer your question, Dennis? Sorry.
Yeah, and obviously you're talking about kind of the chlorophyll in the plants, and I guess that
So
kind of
chlorophyll was the word I was grasping for. Yeah.
Okay. And I think there's some people like who go down the lines of alkaline water and other specific food groups to try and get the alkalinity. So you're saying that you have, I guess, a fairly clean diet, but that's how you alkalize, not
right,
not by changing your whole diet. Is that right?
I try to eat alkaline where possible, but I'm also human. And the alkaline diet doesn't mean foregoing all those kind of treats that maybe being a traditional vegan you'd have to. And when I use the word treats, it's a loose word. What ordinary people see as treats, like your meat steaks and your chicken wings and your coffee in the morning and your alcohol, all these things that have a very acidic effect on the bloodstream. It doesn't mean foregoing them. What it means doing is drawing them in to a ratio. So when you look at your food plate, it's in a ratio of what you would have eaten when you lived for those let's just say 1 million years in the nature as a hunter-gatherer, foraging from the plants and the bushes and roots and nuts and berries and this kind of thing, right?
Yeah, it gets tough when you hear so many people advocating for one diet and for another and all this kind of stuff. Well, I guess one of the things that seems it's always consistent, and I think it's something that we can really easily agree on, is this focus on a clean diet. So if you're eating anything,
I would never suggest to anyone that they don't try to eat food that hasn't got chemicals in. I mean, that would be ludicrous, wouldn't it? Pesticides, fertilizer. If you can eat organic, of course, that's isn't. You're trying to get natural, like we would have done when we lived in the woods, right? Or we lived in caves, of course. However, that's not the crux of our ill health. Although I have no doubt, if you put chemicals in your body, you for a long enough period of time, you're going to invite ill health, right? No, the root of all our ill health is this alkaline balance, and it's so badly misunderstood. The reason is your body can only get rid of so much acid at a time. Now, it's natural to have acid to eat foods that create acid in our body. That's normal because, again, when we lived in the nature, we wouldn't always get to eat green leaves every day because it would be seasonal. It would be dependent on weather. It would be dependent on hunting grounds and all this kind of thing. So the body has a natural ability to get rid of certain amount of acid. If, say, for example, you had to eat apples all one day because it was the only food source, well, apple has a higher degree of sugar in it. Not as much as modern apples because everything's been bred to be more sweeter, right? But we're talking in the nature, these apples would have significantly had more sugar in. Sugar causes acidity in the body. But what would happen is you might eat the apples one day, but then the next day you'd be eating stinging nettles. Whatever you could get, you'd be picking shoots and leaves. And so your alkalinity is what we're talking over the course of a year. And your body also works, as you said, uric acid to eject this acid from your body. Now, here's the problem. Western diet, where you're not eating that green stuff very much. If you are, it's a little tiny bit, a spoon of peas on the side of your plate, or a little bit of broccoli on next to your beef steak and your 10 potatoes. And what do we tend to do? Well, we leave the broccoli on the plate. Don't you look at a restaurant, look at all the plates, the veg is always left.
Even like it's just interesting. I'm just thinking about it, but it was, I think, one of your countrymen, was it Sir Walter Raleigh, who found potatoes in was it it wasn't Hawaii, but it was one of those areas, and he brought them back to Ireland in the mid 1700s or somewhere around there. And so even things like those starchy vegetables we had, they weren't traditionally part of what we consider a Western diet, were they?
And it's fine, as I keep going back to, we think of diets in the West as this very rigid thing that you've got to stick to. And we only think of it generally in terms of weight gain. That's most people's main concern. Again, because we live by our ego. We worry about what other people think. That's ego, right? This is why I say, get rid of it. Don't let that control you. Be your own person. Love yourself. Love all other people. Life just becomes so much easier for you, so much happier. But it's fine to eat the meat and the carbohydrate. I mean, if for moral reasons you don't want to kill animals, fine. I wouldn't argue. I only really eat meat if I go out to a restaurant and their vegetarian option is just pathetic. And it's not, for me, it's not about the killing of the animals, although obviously I don't agree with I don't like factory farming obviously, but what I'm trying to say is I just generally don't eat meat in my diet anyway, because there's not a massive need for it. I know there's some dispute about omegas, omega-3s and this kind of thing, but it's that you can have this thing, you can have meat and potatoes in your diet, Dennis, but like I say, we swamp our plates with that. We have the little bit of the green chlorophyll, which is God's way of sending, or Mother Nature's way of sending her energy to us, and we have it in little bits. And that meat and potatoes just makes your body toxic, full of acid, and then your body's very clever system cannot get rid of that acid at the quick enough rate, so it stores it in your tissues. And that is why when you test yourself with one of these strips, if you live in America, for example, you're going to rate down here as low as 5.5, if not lower. You're in the red, because a typical American diet is your burgers and your fries and your tortillas and your ground beef and all. Do you get what I'm saying, Dennis? I'm making sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, and I think there's a few things that are interesting to kind of to I guess contemplate when you talk about that. And a lot of people, for example, and again, I don't want to be taking sides, and it's not about that, but can get healthy, let's say, if they're on the vegan diet, for example. And that's why I'm really interested to talk to you, because you prove that there's always something else going on. I mean, you hear, you know, these carnivore stories, I guess, where people have these chronic illnesses that get better. But the fact that you're running up and down the full length of a country at 50 years old, you got to be doing something right, which is why I was intrigued to
I
talk to
did
you
that with
about
no
what you're doing.
training. I did that with no
Yeah,
training as well.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But the other thing, just as another observation, when you're talking about a vegetarian diet or a meat diet and whatnot, these kind of things, and we did briefly touch on this before, is that we have to be aware that our supermarket food is heavily contaminated. So even if you're going to that section where you have all these beautiful greens and, you know, nice colorful fruits and whatnot, we talked about the fact that nitrates are put into the soil to make these things grow properly. And 200 years ago, we had either natural things that we were picking in forest type of situations, or we had this thing called crop rotation, where the soil was replenished with rotating the crops. We don't get that anymore. So all our food is just by default naturally mineral and vitamin
Yeah.
deficient. And
Hence,
the other thing, yeah,
hence the super greens, Dennis. This is very concentrated, or it's. I don't actually know about Tesco's brand because,
yeah,
well, I won't go down that road. But this is very concentrated. 1 spoon of this is the equivalent of having something like 5 portions of green vegetables. And to give you an idea, I'd probably put about anything up to 5 spoons in there. So I'm getting, 25 portions of vegetables, but it's the alkalizing effect is what I'm talking about here.
yeah.
I'm not. I'd love to learn from someone that could teach me about vitamins and minerals and this kind of thing. I very much understand what you're saying about our vegetables these days are deficient in that because of the way they're grown. Like if you have an iceberg lettuce, it's just like eating water, isn't it? It's
Absolutely.
almost like there's no greenness in it. It's just, so I really get that. This is a kind of compensation for our vegetables being so rubbish. This is so concentrated. But again, the main thing to take from this, it's not supposed to be nutrients and this kind of thing. It's the alkalizing effect it has on your body and the ability for your body then to here's the thing, sorry. Your body will only get rid of acid when it's in the alkaline state. So the neutral state. When it's acidic, it's overloaded and it has to store. So what I do every morning by having one of these is I'm putting my body into reset mode because I'm alkalizing it heavily. And when it's alkaline, it goes, yippee, let's get rid of some of this acid, right? Hopefully I don't have too much acid stored in my body because I drink this every morning. It's not the most pleasant drink to drink, but then watching someone you love die of cancer is an awful lot worse, Dennis, right? So yeah, another reason I drink is because I'm not an angel and I'm not always the strongest minded person, despite my kind of extreme endurance athlete stuff. I am not unknown to, I don't say eat junk food because I don't want to promote it, but I'll nip in KFC with my son for our very rare, let's just eat some rubbish for a treat, you know. I will eat a bowl of pasta, you know. I'll eat an Italian meal. An Italian meal is obviously predominantly pasta, so it's very acid producing. But I will do these things because why? Well, I have one of these every morning. And remember what I said, it's about your averaging out, keeping your body averaging on this line. And by having this every morning, I'm almost allowing myself then to eat what I want. I only eat in the evenings, by the way. I drink that in the morning. I fast all till the evening, and then I have my evening meal.
I actually do intermittent fasting as well, and I think it's a really powerful thing to do. Definitely, I encourage that. So who else do you know that's like? Do you have any other like? Did you follow somebody's example? Are the other people? Is there a bit of a bandwagon with it? Like, like let's say, I mean, there's a few people that I listen to, and they kind of give very compelling stories about people curing autoimmune diseases. For example, there's a guy called Phil Escott. I'm going to shout out to him, and he kind of is very much a full carnivore, and he's shown some of the people that he helps, and they've got incredible stories of curing things like multiple sclerosis and reversing
Okay,
some kind of cancer.
Dennis, I'll say two things here. First of all, I need to go and pick up my son from school, and we're going to go swimming, which is something I look forward to. So I'll bring this to a close because I don't think it's worth doing another video.
Sure.
I mean, what I mean is people will lose interest. So two things I'll cover there.
Yeah.
I have no doubt that certain diets will cure certain things. I would never dispute that. I've heard the Jordan Peterson talk about he just eats protein, he just eats meat, and it's cured loads of, right. I don't dispute that. What I say is proof is in the pudding. If you're going to test yourself, and if you're coming out red, I'm going to do another one of these now. Now I've had that drink. Just leave that. You have to leave them for a few seconds. If eat your meat, if that's what floats your boat, but test yourself, and I can almost promise you, you're going to be coming out red. And use your logic. If you think living with your body being acidic, i.e. not the way nature intended it to be, is going to be healthy, then I hate to say it, but you're an idiot. It's that simple. You're an idiot. If you think that burning your body on acid is going to have no effect to the longevity of your life and your mental health and your overall health, then I only say that because a lot of people haven't heard about it. I'm sure listening to me now, they're going to go, actually, that kind of makes sense. How did I get into it? I'm going to talk really quickly here. I was ill for a long period of time after going traveling, had this bizarre stomach infection, giardia, that I didn't think I could get rid of. I saw an advert in the paper saying, have you got an illness that your doctor can't cure? Something like that. I went to see a young chap here where I live in the UK, and he was one of the very few people that have been trained to put your blood on I don't know if it's an electron microscope, but it's a microscope where you can put it on the TV screen. And he showed my blood, and he was able to tell me by looking at this slide what I ate the night before, carbohydrate. It was a bowl of cereal. He was to tell me my blood was in a bad shape. He showed me these white bits floating around in amongst my blood platelets. I'm guessing they're platelets, or maybe they were blood cells. I'm like I say, I'm not trying to be a scientist or a doctor.
No, sure.
Just telling you, I don't get ill. I never get ill. Coronavirus, really, if you love your children, feed them what they're supposed to eat as human beings. Human beings aren't supposed to eat cows because cows, we've only domesticated them in the last 4,000 years or whatever it is. Why would we have been running after them in the nature to eat them raw? Because remember, fire, again, in our evolution, that's relatively a new thing. To go and bite into a raw animal when you could be eating gorgeous nuts, berries, fruits, leaves, shoots, tubers, catching the odd fish because we're primate. You notice the emphasis on the word odd fish there, not catching 100 fish at a time in a net and eating as many as we can in one sitting. Catching the odd rabbit because it's got an injury and we're clever enough to catch up with it, and then but really meat isn't the feature in our diets that these big bodybuilding you know, guys that all die when they're 60 try and tell you it is. So I went to see this guy. He showed me my blood. He said, Chris, that's why you're ill. He said, you got your body, your blood is full of acid. He gave me a book. It was called The pH Miracle. You're going to hear a lot of controversy about this diet. The BBC on one of their websites says people who follow the alkaline diet think that eating an abundance of carbs, alcohol, I'm paraphrasing here, coffee and red meat is bad for you. But of course, there's absolutely no proof for this, right? This is what the BBC are still saying now to this day, when, you know, even the village idiot knows now that an abundance of red meat isn't actually that good, and that alcohol. Do you get what I'm saying? This
absolutely.
I'm just saying for people listening, be aware. The corporations are out to attack you knowing the truth. They don't want you to know the truth. They don't want you to know the truth that a virus cannot take hold in the human body if you're alkaline. It needs a host. It's like the fish tank. If your fish gets sick, you don't throw the fish out, you change the water, because the viruses that kill the fish only can survive because you've created a sewage tank, you know, a sewage environment that they love and they thrive in. It's the same with the human body. You need to Google this, but there's been research been done that cancer cannot gestate, if that's the, you know, it cannot blossom for what, you know, in an alkaline environment. Viruses can't take hold in an alkaline environment, you know. And all I'm saying is, be the person that you would have been in the nature. Ever since I met that guy, and like I say, that was 2003, just before I started university, I started to just make small changes in my diet. I stopped drinking coffee as, like, you know, drinking buckets every day. And I just like try to have maybe one a week. I went for years actually not drinking it. I have the green, started to try and have something green every morning, or if I didn't eat till lunchtime, I'd take to work a big box of salad. I'd sprinkle a few things, maybe some salami in, some raisins, just to, you know, put a load of salt, not sugary sauces, but some chili, some pesto or stuff, just because salad's a bit boring, right? And that's what I did. And like I say, that was 17 years ago. And I used to get sick a lot. The coughs, the colds, the flu. I could have a cough, or a cold, or a flu, get rid of it. 2 days later, I'd get it again, right? And so I just encourage people, look into it, do what I do. So now, just going to finish off by showing you the stick again, Dennis. I was 7 earlier, right? That's the one I've just done. We're up to 7.5.
And I think that's the thing, Chris, you know, and I honestly don't know specifically about the alkaline diet, but what I do know is that your performance is off the bloody charts. I can actually see it.
When I went to John O'Groats to run 1,000 miles, Dennis, carrying this heavy backpack, like I say, ultra marathon a day, I told everyone was going, oh, I don't know if you'll do it. And I was just able to go, I'm going to smash it, and then nothing's going to stop me. And that's just the place I've got myself to in life, both mentally and physically. But when I did a water fast, I'll talk to you about that another day. Well, I shifted 3 stone in weight. That's like a television set. And I got my body in this lovely alkaline way of living that makes you feel so strong. You know, even when you don't exercise and train, which I didn't. I'd had a bad back, so I couldn't train for this event. I just went for it. I just went, right, paid for a flight, went to Scotland, ran the length of the country. And like I said, you know, I told everyone when I was up there in Scotland, I'm going to do this. You don't need to be doubting me or wishing me good luck. It's just, I am going to do this. And that was just more investment in myself, you know. So
And
I really do have to go, Dennis. Thank you
no
ever
worries.
so much.
We'll wrap it up really quickly. And I think the big thing is we're not saying what works, what doesn't work. What we're saying is it's all about awareness. The more things you know about, including this, check it out. You might find something that'll work for you. So, you know, it's not about preaching or having a dogma. It's just awareness. And I love that stuff you said about, you know, love and kindness and the work you do. I take my hat off to you. I think you do a fantastic job, Chris.
Thank you very much. And Dennis, thank you for your kindness. For anybody listening, I've interviewed, I don't like the word interview, but I've chatted with Dennis on my podcast, which I'm going to be publishing soon. He's a lovely man. He cares about people.
Tell us about your site, please, and tell us about the ways people can get a hold of what you do.
Right.
Please.
So my name is Chris Thrall, Chris CHRIS, Thrall THRALL. Just Google my name, Chris Thrall. You'll come. My YouTube is youtube.com Chris Thrall. Come and be a subscriber. I run a Patreon platform where I give life coaching to people for £2 a month. You're not going to get it cheaper than that, right? Just Google my name, Chris Thrall, and you'll put a link below the video anyway, Dennis, yeah?
Will indeed. Chris, thank you so much. I can't say how great it is to speak to you.
Big love and respect to you and everybody else, Dennis. Thank you.
You're welcome. Take care.
Cheers, cheers.